Hey everybody, this is Chris from Why Does This Exist? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're enjoying your Martin Luther King Day weekend. And I hope that everything is going swimmingly in your lives. This episode, we were hesitant as to whether or not we were going to actually air it. This is the PJs, which you could also call it the Eddie Murphy episode too. We recorded this about a year ago, and it was a really nice episode. We loved this episode. It was probably one of our best ones. And there were just some weird technical difficulties, so I'm just giving you that warning just as a heads up. I really just want to make sure that you guys know that. And if you want to keep listening, great. I strongly advise you. There's like some weird echo with my voice going on in the episode, and that's really what the issue is. We tried to fix it. It wouldn't get fixed, but now we're just gonna, we've said it on the Trading Places and other episodes, we're gonna just give it out to the world. I'm tired of having it kept under wraps, and like we said, we will revisit the PJs at a later date on at some other time later in this year, possibly 1 year after we had recorded it, so that way we can have a fresh look at everything. So right here, right now, this is the original PJs episode. We hope you enjoy it, and we hope that you can get past the technical difficulties. And if not, you could just say it in the comments. Chris, you're an idiot. Why did you do this? Now I hate you, and I'm never going to listen to your show. And by the way, I didn't give you any money for Patreon, but now I certainly never will. Good day to you, sir. And that will be that. But if you like it, then let us know and just say, hey, Chris, I'm glad you did this. This was really cool. Glad that there's no more technical difficulties. All right, guys. Have a great day. Have a wonderful Martin Luther King weekend, and enjoy this episode.
Do not adjust your digital device. What you are about to see and hear may shock and appall you. Join our hosts as they encounter countless thrills, spills, chills, and hilarity as they explore the very weirdest in pop culture. The following media is so strange, so beyond the scope of what is normal, it will make you ask the question, why does this exist? Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Why Does This Exist? I'm Chris.
And I'm Rob.
And today we've got a really cool show for you where we're going to be talking about a lost gem of a sitcom known as the PJs. This starred the voice of Eddie Murphy, or Eddie Murphy just really voicing the main character, however you want to look at it.
He also created the show.
And the creator, yes. And it was a really fun show. I remember watching it on every Thursday after SmackDown, and we just did the watch along yesterday as it's recording. This is we're recording this on May 20th, and
don't tell them that. Now they know the secrets.
What? They'll figure it out. They're smart kids, mostly. But this is a really fun show that I hadn't remembered it because I had until we had watched it, but I hadn't really seen it for the longest time. And just like the minute that the theme song hit, everything just instantly kept flooding back. But it was a lot of fun, and it was a really cool stop motion show, just about like the characters that are involved in that just live in the projects. And the main character is the super voiced by Eddie Murphy. But before we get into that, let me just run through our ad stuff. We would really like it if you guys would, first of all, we really like it that you guys listen to our show and you guys actually care about what the hell we're doing, which that's very nice of you. If you want to give us a couple of extra bucks, if you think that our material is worthy, you can do so by heading over to Patreon. That's patreon.com/whydoesthisexist. And the way that works is you can head over there, give us a couple of bucks, we give you a shout out on our podcast, or we give you a shout out on our podcast, and if you want to give us a little extra money, depending on the tier, I think $5 gets you your very own episode, which basically you tell us what our show is going to be on, and we will do the episode based on your selection. And if you want to give us $10, then there will be some bonus content, such as watch-alongs, listen-alongs, banter, excess banter, and just some extra cool stuff for you, the very good human being and or alien or pet, giving us your hard-earned dollars. You can do that at patreon.com/whydoesthisexist. That watch-along includes the PJ's watch-along that we just did yesterday. It is up on YouTube now. I will add it into the Patreon. By the time you listen to this, it will be in the Patreon for all you cool people. And that would be really great. You can also let us know of anything weird or any cool, interesting topics to talk about on the very weirdest in pop culture at whydoesthisexistshow@gmail.com. And you can also find us on YouTube, where we house a lot of this podcast, and you can like, subscribe, and comment on all of our stuff so that we can talk about some extra things, give you guys a shout out on the show, and just have a lot of good fun. And you don't forget to hit. And if you do subscribe, thank you. And number 2, hit that stupid bell that everybody hates, so that way you know exactly when we've got a new show or a clip or whatever it is uploaded for you. You can, and we're also on Facebook and on Twitter. So make sure that you find us there by heading over to Twitter and following us at WDTE Pod. W as in why, D does, T this, E exist pod at Twitter. And you can also use the hashtag why does this exist to reach out to us with any questions or any weird topics or anything like that. And also don't forget to find us at Facebook. Why does this exist? And that is facebook.com/whydoesthisexistpod. So thank you guys for checking us out. And by the way, we have a website now. It's whydoesthisexistpod.com, where you can find all of our episodes, as well as some extra content, such as articles just about topics that we have yet to speak of or will not speak of on the show. So it's just some extra cool stuff for you to come over, read, and at some point we'll probably open up a store on the site too, so that you can buy a Ragtag Group of Rogues t-shirt, or a Why Does This Exist t-shirt, or a hat maybe. Or maybe you'll just get a beer koozie. I don't know what we're going to sell. Or maybe we'll have a shirt that says, "Let's get on with the goddamn show," which is exactly what I should be doing right now. But you can also find us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Pandora, TuneIn, Alexa, iHeartRadio, Player FM, and Listen Notes. Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah.
So without further ado, let's get on with the goddamn show.
All right.
The PJs, it aired from about 99, I want to say that it was on.
It aired from 1999 to 2001 was its original run, and then it went into syndication on various networks since then, and even during its original run, I believe.
Yeah, because what we were saying before, we remember watching it on UPN like right after SmackDown. But
yeah.
It also aired on Fox too.
Yeah, originally it aired on Fox for the first 2 seasons, then it moved to the WB for season 3. But we both distinctly remember watching it as soon as SmackDown ended. During that time, SmackDown was on UPN. So I think it definitely must have been in syndication by that point. I also remember seeing it on Adult Swim when I was probably around like high school age.
Yeah, I remember seeing it on Adult Swim too.
Yeah. It was kind of, and it's weird because you mentioned before that you like really didn't remember it until we decided to do the podcast about it. And It's the same thing for me. Like, I completely forgot the show existed until we decided to do the podcast. And even like after you like said, "Oh, let's do the PJs," I'm like, "What's that?" And you're like, "Oh, it's this like show that had Eddie Murphy, and it was like a claymation show about all these people that live in the projects." And I'm like, "Oh, like I completely forgot." And when I looked it up and I saw the logo, and then when we were watching it during the watch along, I remembered the theme song. It all like came rushing back to me.
Right. I think the what was I going to say? I think it was just one of those things where it's just like I don't. It's like almost a forgotten gem, but it's just like one of those things where like the second that you hear it, you're like, oh, I remember this show. I remember this. I remember that.
I think
also
when I watched
it was just a unique show because nothing else was really stop motion at the time, and also Eddie Murphy, like, he wasn't really a sitcom guy, but this was the way. This was like a really fun way to like have a sitcom, and it worked because it was just it could be just as ridiculous and over the top and silly as he is.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say.
Honestly, I probably like just ad-libbed the entire lines of the show for his character. He's the main character, Thurgood Stubbs, who is the super of the project complex.
I was going to say, I think when I watched it when I was a kid, I thought it was okay, but I wasn't like super into it. But I think it was because I didn't understand a lot of the humor because it is more adult humor. So rewatching it when we did the watch along, I was actually like, this is actually a really funny show. Like, there's a lot of good jokes in it. It's pretty creative. The animation is very good, considering it's like stop motion or claymation.
Yeah, it's very
yeah. So it kind of sucks. It didn't really catch on. There was only 44 episodes. It was only 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Because I think this could have been a hit.
I think so.
Apparently, Eddie Murphy actually didn't voice Thurgood throughout the whole episodes. Later episodes, he was voiced by Phil Morris, who is played Jackie Giles on Seinfeld.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I could see that. I could hear Jackie Giles like that. That's like an easy transition. I think to do he could do a voice that's almost identical to what Eddie Murphy could do. Yeah. So.
Well, but the Eddie Murphy thing that he put on was like the one thing in every it's like a staple of Eddie Murphy's just being essentially. It's the voice that whenever his character gets annoyed at something, that he was just in that voice the whole time. Like I'm gonna butcher this right now, just to demonstrate where he's just like, oh, a can of beans. Why the hell did you go to the store?
Yeah.
Just that part. Obviously, I can't do it perfectly. I'm not Eddie Murphy, but that's what. Yeah. That's just to give you guys a guideline of what it is. But it was just always him, just kind of yell, just yelling.
Yeah, it's like a half yell, kind of angry voice, almost like. I'm trying to think. What other character he would do that voice as?
He does it at least once in every movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess kind of almost like the old barbershop dude in Coming to America.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. He also did that in a stand-up too, and he would also do it on SNL. So
yeah.
I bet you that there's some kind of a connection with that particular voice and that speech pattern that he does, the way that he does it. I guarantee you it was probably his father or an uncle or something.
Yeah. Or maybe even a super, if he whatever building he lived in. I think Eddie Murphy grew up in New York City, if I remember correctly.
He grew up.
Yes, in Brooklyn.
He was raised on Long Island, and then he moved over to Brooklyn later on. I think.
It says.
I think his teen years he went to Brooklyn.
He was raised in Bushwick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I could see that, if it was, someone that, in his childhood that he grew up with, he developed the character based on that. It makes sense. But, it clearly is his comedy. Like, you can really tell that he puts himself in it. I don't know. Eddie Murphy's, I would say he's pretty much a comedic genius. Like, I think, he's one of the greats, definitely will be known for a long time. Everyone's like, you look at the best comedians of the last 50 years, Eddie Murphy's definitely up there.
Honestly,
it's a shame that
I feel like the comedy Rushmore needs more than 4 people on it.
Yeah. It's a shame that he hasn't done stand-up since the 80s because, he's, again, I think if he came back, there's a huge demand for it. I know, we talked about this a little bit the other day, that, there's probably a lot of people that will, immediately, just because it's Eddie Murphy, would just, buy the tickets, and then I think that's what he's kind of worried about, is because he, doesn't want people to just, laugh at him. He wants people to laugh at his jokes. And so many people will just buy a ticket to go see Eddie Murphy just because it's Eddie Murphy.
Yeah. That was really, that was essentially the problem as to, why he ended up leaving stand-up, was just because he had gotten, his star has gotten so big and so bright that, that he would just go on stage, and it would be before he, even said anything. He would just wave to people, and, there'd be somebody in the front row, uncontrollably laughing, and he would just be like, I didn't do anything. I haven't started. I just walked on stage, and these people already can't control themselves. So it's when I make a joke, is it funny because the joke is funny, or are they or are they just glad to be in my presence that they just are going to laugh at anything I do, whether it's funny or not? So just kind of taking a step back there, and I mean, he's talked about it a lot in recent interviews that he's been wanting to get back to doing stand-up, but he's just not sure. It's difficult because he's such a big star. Mm-hmm. Wherever he shows up, just to try out material, the second that anybody says something about it, it'll just be considered his comeback, and he doesn't want that to be. He wants to polish his act first.
Yeah, I can see him. He should do a small small clubs and but don't bill himself as Eddie Murphy. Come up with and he could easily go in disguise.
Oh yeah,
because you look at his films when he played 18 different characters, and every single time he was you couldn't tell it was Eddie Murphy.
Yeah,
when he plays the old Jewish guy in the barbershop in Coming to America, you would never know that's Eddie Murphy unless you watched the credits and saw that it was Eddie Murphy at the end,
Yeah, he could absolutely pull it off. If anybody could pull that off, it could be him.
Yeah. It's kind of disappointing too that he hasn't really done many movies. He's been kind of coming back a little bit. He's done a couple here and there in the last few years, but not nearly as much as he used to.
Well, I mean, also he's I think he's in his early 60s at this point. I mean, he looks great.
Yeah.
He hasn't aged a day.
Yeah. But he is 60. He's actually 60. So yeah,
I gotta understand, the guy's not gonna need to work as much. Or he's not gonna feel up to it, but he looks terrific.
Yeah.
There's gotta be something in the water that he's drinking over there, but he I mean, also, I kind of like that he's slowed down a little bit because it makes me miss him more, and then when he does when he does something, I know I'm going to watch it. But I think he's kind of just done a little, some smaller projects here and there, some passion projects. Mm-hmm. He's at this point in his career where he can just pick. Where, in the 90s and early 2000s, he was everywhere.
Yeah, and he was not doing a lot of... he was doing some good movies, like Shrek, and then he was doing some really bad movies, like Adventures of Pluto Nash and Norbit.
I actually never saw Pluto Nash.
I never saw it either, and I refused to watch it because it's I don't want to, tarnish my image of Eddie Murphy.
I mean, I've seen a few of his bad movies. I don't have any he doesn't. He's not lower on my good graces meter or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
just like, oh, okay, this is Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy wanted to make money. Okay, cool. Like that.
Yeah.
Like whatever. He picked these comedy. He picked these things. Not every project was that good, but all the bad ones didn't tank his career either. So like,
Right.
he's got a magic touch.
Well, I think also the 80s, it was a way different time for comedy. I think comedy was way better in the 80s than it was in the late 90s and early 2000s.
I think so too.
The jokes were drier. It was more like sarcasm. It wasn't like, it got a little bit too much physical comedy later into the 90s and stuff. And I think and it's not, Eddie Murphy wasn't the only one who was doing that. It was like every comedic movie in like the late 90s, early 2000s was that same kind of like, I don't know, lower, I don't want to say dumber because, it is kind of dumber comedy. It's not as clever. It's a lot of more slapstick and physical comedy and toilet humor.
Yeah, I guess like more casual comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to say it was like after the Nutty Professor took off because the Nutty Professor had like a lot of those jokes in it.
Yeah.
And like body humor and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really funny, and I think it was a huge hit. So I think maybe after that was when a lot of it started like going in that way, and he was getting picked for. He was getting roles that were closer to that in style, in the comedic style. So it could be a thing of that. I mean, he also did a lot of good movies in between.
Yeah.
But a lot of people just remember more the bad movies in the 90s, early 2000s. But, he did Norbit, but, like, he also, in the same year or the year before, did Dreamgirls, which he was incredible at. And, unfortunately, I think Norbit had tanked his Oscar. He was up for, like, Best Supporting Actor for Dreamgirls. And
I've never actually seen Dreamgirls.
It's very good.
I've heard. I mean, I know it was amazing. It was a really good movie.
Yeah.
He won the Golden Globe for that.
Yeah, he won the Golden Globe, and he was a shoo-in to get the Oscar, and Norbit had come out about the month in between the Oscars and the Golden Globes, I think. And, the rumor, I don't know for sure, but the rumor is that Norbit, wrecked his Dreamgirls thing.
Yeah.
But, they showed it, but, I remember I was watching the Oscars with my friend, and we were expecting Eddie Murphy to win, and then we were like, well, the only reason that he wouldn't get it is because of Norbit, and then, they showed, and, for some stupid reason, the camera cuts to, after they announced the winner, the camera cuts to Eddie Murphy, who visibly, starts cursing in his seat. And he just, he visibly loudly curses in his seat. He gets up and he leaves. I was like, why would you cut to that instead of the person who won, you idiot? That's bad from there. But he also, if you haven't seen Dolomite Is My Name, that is really good.
I have not.
That's on Netflix. I think that was a Netflix original. It is so good.
Yeah.
And I mean, nobody else could have really done a movie about the Dolomite fellow's life. I don't remember his name off the top of my head.
Rudy Ray Moore.
Yes, Rudy Ray Moore. How do you forget that name? But he, but yeah, he depicted him really well. I thought it was a really good movie.
Yeah,
and it was a good inspirational story too of how you don't have to be you're never too old to achieve your dreams. Rudy Ray Moore was 50 when he did Dolomite, and and as bad as the movie as it was, he didn't care and he had fun, and everybody liked it, and he was able to just make more.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very inspirational thing. But all right, back to the PJs. One thing that doesn't usually happen in voiceover is Eddie Murphy had an understudy too for the show.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Mosley, which, believe it or not, is a white guy. Kind of interesting when they do that in voiceover. I know now, like with like a lot of this like cancel culture crap, people get mad if like they don't cast the right person, if they don't cast the exact role for like whatever the job is. But I mean, that's kind of what an actor is. You play something that you're not. Like it's just trying to like understand and like just portray this character to the best of your abilities from the best of your understanding, and like even if you're not that. So like yes, there's parameters in like physical acting, like you couldn't put some like it's stupid if you like do blackface or brownface or anything like that. Like that's just dumb. Like just get the right guy or gal. But when it comes to like voice acting, for some reason people get mad about that too. Where like, hey, why is like this person playing something that they're not in real life? And it's like that's kind of the fun in voiceover.
It's like how
there's issues. There is issues, and there are. I'm not gonna say that there isn't like racial issues in that industry. There's racial issues in every industry. And they should do a better job, and they should open it out to more people of color, and they should cast more people of color. But they shouldn't give certain directions where they want you to act more like a certain group. Like that's just kind of stupid. Otherwise, like if you really want that particular style, just get either someone who can then just get someone who can do it. But like, don't like, just because, like the guy who was Cleveland, like isn't a fat black guy, like doesn't mean you have to like chastise him. I mean that did happen with him. He stepped down, but I think Kevin Michael Richardson is going to be Cleveland now, who also was on the PJs. I'm not sure if he's Cleveland now. I don't watch the show. I don't follow.
Yeah, I haven't watched Family Guy in years.
But they got some other dude, and like good for that guy. I mean, also the guy who stepped down, he already had enough money being Cleveland and all the other like big projects that he had to do it. So like, there's.
Well, Hank Azaria has said that he's not going to do the voice of Apu in The Simpsons anymore either.
Yeah, well, because there was like a lot of pressure because some guy who's like, there was some guy who made a movie about.
Right, yeah.
And then, like, first Hank Azaria was, like, quiet about it. And then, like, now he's just, like, coming around to it. But, like, he just stopped doing it. Harry Shearer, who voices a bunch of characters on The Simpsons, has been, like, outspoken against doing stuff like that, which, I, like, of just, like, bowing down, like, doing stuff like that. And he's like, whatever. It's, like, it's just stupid. We're actors. It's, like... we're not going to play characters that, like, that's part of the job. Is like, you're not always going to play what the part states. Like if I'm an actor and I have to be a pirate, like, and somebody's going to, and people are going to get mad at me because I'm not a real pirate, like, that's just stupid. Or if they say, hey, you should get a real pirate to, like, play the role, so, like, they, like, find a real-life pirate somewhere. I don't know where you go for that. Maybe Albuquerque, New Mexico. I don't know. Maybe that's what Bugs Bunny was trying to find the whole time.
Well, like, at the same...
Like, and, like, but, like, the pirate that you get isn't an actor, so, like, the pirate's gonna suck.
Right.
Or and the pirate isn't, or maybe you get a pirate who has a good agent and, like, is a real actor and they're good at it, then give the role to the pirate. Like, if the pirate gets in the room, maybe you get the pirate, but if the pirate doesn't get in the room, then don't. Or if the pirate gets in the room and the pirate's not that good, then you can't get the pirate.
I think a good example, too, is, a show like Samurai Jack, which I think we'll probably do on the podcast episode on.
Do that.
But Samurai Jack is voiced by Phil Lamar, who's a black man, a very famous black voice actor, and a regular actor. He's been in real movie. He was in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah. And he was on TV for a few years.
Yeah, but like does the voice of Jack perfectly. Like it's great. Like his voice of, like as Jack is great. But like you would have people that would argue like, oh well, it should have been an Asian man playing Samurai Jack because it's a samurai warrior, so obviously he's from Japan. But it's like, but why? Because Phil Lamar did a great job as it.
Yeah.
You know, like who cares? Like if the job is good, like if the voice acting is good, then what does it matter who is playing the voice?
Yeah,
right?
It makes no difference.
I could understand if it was a live action show and you had someone that was an Asian character that was played by a white person or a black person or somebody else. I could see there could be a problem because it's like obviously this is supposed to be an Asian character. You should have an Asian actor play.
Yeah, that I can see. Like I said, in the physical world,
this is a voice role is different.
Yeah, a voice is a voice. That's it.
Right.
But moving on, the PJs. Long story short, it's a show about the whole about an apartment housing complex, the projects, as you would, and it's just all the characters in there, kind of like how South Park is about is about the town.
Mm-hmm.
The projects is about the projects, is about the whole community in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's centered around the super, which is played by Eddie Murphy and others, and he's like the everyman. He's underappreciated. He's not the best super in the world, but I mean, if you listen to our watch along, you'll hear me complain about my super. So everybody's a critic when it comes when you're a handyman, and you see it weigh on him. You see how he cares about what he does, even though the people in the building get on his nerves, he still cares about them, and he still and he still tries to do good, but sometimes he just doesn't feel like doing it. And I mean, how many days of you've gone have we ever gone to work and one day it's just not we're just not really on that day, so we're just kind of doing an autopilot. It happens. Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen every once in a while.
Yeah.
Usually on Wednesdays. But it's just a part of life, and it shows the super, it shows the kids, it shows his wife. It also shows some of his other physical elements, he clearly has a heart condition.
Yeah.
And his wife is just trying to feed him Prozac, and she's trying to get him to eat healthier.
Mm-hmm. She bakes him a pie with Prozac pie.
And there's all the kids in the area, and he's trying to get them to go to school and be good kids and everything like that. And he's teaching them integrity and stuff like that. And there's the other characters, you have the crazy if you've ever lived in in a big city, or if you've ever lived in an apartment complex of some sort or anything like that, you'll run into some pretty crazy, interesting people.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they live in your building. I've got this guy who we see him just about every day. I pretty much just call him the mayor. The mayor. He's a really nice guy, but he's he's this classic hippie guy, this classic hippie stoner guy. Super long hair, got a bunch of tattoos. He's kind of a biker, kind of not. And you just every once in a while you hear him getting into a fight with somebody. He just drinks and smokes outside. And then he just kind of hangs out there, takes in the sun for a little bit, hangs out with everybody, and just kind of asks them how their day's going, and helps the old ladies carry the groceries up. He's he's just that crazy guy. But if you talk to him for a little bit, he's got a bunch of interesting stories. He's a big Flyers fan, so he was telling me how in the '70s he used to go to the games, and when everything was brutal with with hockey, when the Flyers were just the Broad Street Bullies, and they were just all they were goons, and they just abused people, and just every play was a fight. The whole rule book, the NHL rule book would not be as big as it is today if it were not for that team. I'm serious. All just about every rule that's been added after the mid to late 70s is probably because of the Flyers.
Yeah.
But like bench clearing brawls, all that stuff. There's a great documentary about it just called The Broad Street Bullies. I highly recommend that. But overall, the PJs, it was a really fun show. You had all these crazy neighbors and all these crazy people going on, and all the stuff that was happening in the community, and it was a lot of fun, and there was some truth to it too. My dad grew up at the projects in Coney Island, and I was talking with him about it like a couple of days ago, and I was just like, oh yeah, we're doing the PJs this week. And, I just mentioned, hey, remember that show with Eddie Murphy? My dad was like, yeah, it was really funny. It's like sometimes the projects was just like that. And I was like, really? He was like, oh yeah, you had crazy people like the chicken lady sometimes.
Yeah.
He's like, these weird people do exist.
Yeah.
Well,
there was like
situations do exist, and something like the thing with the TV antenna. He was like, that stuff kind of happens sometimes. It's not always a kid dangling from it, but the super is usually pissed off, so they played him pretty well.
Yeah. And you have like the crazy neighbors, like you have the one lady who's like the Haitian voodoo priestess. Yeah. She's got like a voodoo doll of everybody in the projects, like in her medicine cabinet, basically. And then you have like the guy who's got like, he's like, smoked his whole life. So he's got like one of those like electric talking things because he has like a, no voice box. So he has to have the electric microphone thing that has the robot voice.
Yeah. Yeah, the wife was pretty much modeled. She's pretty much modeled after the lady in the Jeffersons. I forget her name. Mrs. Jefferson. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what her name was on the show. I haven't seen that show in years.
I haven't seen the Jeffersons in so long.
But she looked pretty similar to the actress on that show.
Yeah. I would say Thurgood actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Red Fox's character in Sanford and Son.
Oh,
a little bit.
He does.
And I think Eddie Murphy actually. I know he worked a lot with Richard Pryor, and I think he might have worked with Red Fox a little bit too when he was coming up. So you can kind of see that influence a little bit, I think.
Yeah. Well, Richard Pryor didn't like him when he was coming up.
Really? I didn't know that.
They eventually worked together on Harlem Nights, but
right.
And I think Red Fox was in that too. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yes, Red Fox was in Harlem Nights. It's a good movie, and I haven't seen that in a long time either. Harlem Nights is actually really good, and it's not really a comedy so much. It's more of like a crime drama.
Yeah, it's more like a dramedy, but it's underrated.
Yes, it's a good movie.
It's got a really good cast, like just all like really great, funny, talented dudes.
Yeah.
Like Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, Paul Mooney, Red Fox, Richard Pryor. How good could it get? But Richard Pryor wasn't a fan of his in the beginning because Richard Pryor was intimidated by him, and Bill Cosby didn't like him at all.
Well, but look at where Bill Cosby ended up. So.
Exactly. So not a whole lot to say there.
Yeah.
But Bill Cosby would he used to tell him, he used to call him up and he used to tell him, don't curse in your shows, you shouldn't be cursing, you shouldn't be doing this. Or now the shoe's on the other foot, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't be spiking ladies' drinks.
Right.
Doing all these terrible things that you're
it's interesting
for. So I don't know, maybe you just shouldn't be committing crimes.
It's interesting how many people that are wholesome end up being really scummy people, and then people that are vulgar or say a lot of curse words end up being the nicest people around.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised.
Look at Bob Saget. If you look at Bob Saget's stand-up, it's the raunchiest, most obscene stand-up there is. But then he played this all-American family nice guy on Full House.
Yeah.
So it's I guess that was him playing a character, but I've heard Bob Saget's not too bad in real life, I think.
He doesn't seem like he is. I've never liked Bob Saget particularly, but that has nothing to do with him or his show. It's because alright, this is a funny story. For those listening in digital media device land, let me open up my mind and let you understand how screwed up I am. So when I was a wee lad, Bob Saget was hosting America's Funniest Home Videos.
I remember that.
There was an opening scene. Now, I was very little when he first started doing this. I was maybe like 3, 2 maybe. And there was an opening shot of America's Funniest Home Videos where there were it was just how it is. It's like a compilation of just random clips that viewers send in or whatever. So there was an opening clip where there was a little kid. There was a small child. He was doing a birthday with his friends or whatever, and with his little friends in a park or his parents' backyard or something. And they have the cake right there, and they're like, "All right, blow out the candles." And he goes to blow out the candles, and this girl, this slightly older girl, comes up from behind him. She shoves his face in the cake, and the kid starts crying. And my dad, being my dad, would always tell me, "Oh, that's you. Do you remember that?"
Oh my god!
Where this kid was clearly older than I was at that time, and because I was that young, you believe everything your parents tell you. So I believed him for years.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me that the girl who did it was my cousin. And so for years I believed him, and I hated Bob Saget. Every time that show came on, I would get this angry face, and I would shake my fist at the TV. And my dad would just crack, and my dad would just be like, "Why are you doing that?" And I would just not say anything, so I would be seething. And this went on for years, and I believed it, and I couldn't watch America's Funniest Home Videos even when Tom Bergeron started hosting. I could never watch this show until my late teens, when I was like, "Dad, do we have that footage anywhere?" And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "The one that you sent into America's Funniest Home Videos." And he was stunned. I think I was 17 or something like that. And he was trying to think about it, because he was like, "We never sent any footage to America's Funniest Home Videos." And I was like, "Yes, you did. You remember?" And I was and I'm describing the whole thing, and he just cracks up. I've never seen him laugh so hard, but he was crying, and he was like, "You really believe this shit?" I was like, "You were my dad, and I was 2. Of course I believed you." He was like, "You believed it all these years?"
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So now I've come to grips with Bob Saget. I have no ill will towards Bob Saget anymore.
Well, you can't really blame Bob Saget for that.
No. I hope I meet Bob Saget so I can tell him this story one day, so that we can both laugh about it, and then he can call me an idiot. But yes. Yes, continue. What were you going to say?
I don't even remember. I was gonna. I don't even know what Bob Saget does anymore. He hasn't even done anything in recent years.
I think he just performs on the road. And he does. And he did Fuller House when they did it.
Oh, well, I didn't watch Fuller House.
I still haven't watched it.
I watched Full House a little bit when I was a kid. It was okay. It wasn't the greatest show ever. It was.
Yeah, I watched it when I was a kid too. I had a crush on Jodie Sweetin.
Yeah.
She was my first. I think she was my first TV crush, actually. My first big TV crush. I used to take crayons, and I would just draw the heart, and just me and Jodie Sweetin, and my mom would just be like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "She's my girlfriend." And my mom's like, "Okay." And then time to get the sleeping pills for this kid. No.
Oh, apparently he has a podcast now.
Bob Saget?
Yeah.
I mean, every comedian does.
Every comedian has a podcast.
Every person on Earth basically does at this point.
Yeah,
Unborn.
well, especially since I think the podcasting is like everybody's like COVID project, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, my unborn child has a podcast, and none of us are expecting anything. Just to put that disclaimer out there.
Yeah.
I have no plans to currently have children, and there is nothing in the works. But my 5-year-old invisible son has a podcast.
Yeah.
That's a good name for a podcast. But I won't do that one. Anyway, we have a lot of other crazy characters on the show too. You have the two kids like Calvin and Juicy, who is I definitely think that he is that he's like an allegory for Biggie Smalls, because he looks and he sounds like a young Biggie, and his name is Juicy. You put two and two together, it's got to be a thing for him.
Yeah. There's also Smokey the crackhead, the local crackhead, who looks like a camel. I commented this during the watch along.
He does look like a camel.
He looks like what's that freaking cigarette company, that Joe Camel or whatever? Like the cigarette mascot?
Was it Marlboro? I think.
No, it was Camel cigarettes.
Oh yeah, it was just Camel.
Yeah.
The camel's name was Joe?
I think it was.
Huh. Okay. And then you've got like the you've got the Asian couple, Jimmy Ho and Baby Ho. They're Korean tenants, and they just they're just like yelling, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry." It's just funny. And they have all these other people on the show. You have like the one Rasta guy who just shows up randomly. We're like,
oh, and he's just a cloud of smoke.
He's just a cloud of pot smoke.
Yeah. That was just like, again, that's like one of those jokes that like flies right over your head when you're a kid watching it after like SmackDown. And it's like, now it's like, wow, it's hilarious. Like,
yeah.
This is like one of those series that like I want to like rewatch now that I'm older and I can actually understand it, because I would probably crack up at it. Like, there's just so many like good jokes, and we just watched the first episode for the watch along, and it was funny. Like, and which is hard. It's hard for like whenever a new show comes out, the pilot is always kind of like like it'll have some funny jokes, but you can tell that they're really not in the groove yet. They're just testing the waters. And that's pretty much like universal across every sitcom I've ever seen. Like the pilot is like,
It's usually the worst episode in the whole series.
Yeah. But this was actually funny, this pilot. So I actually want to kind of look back and watch the show and like, because I'm sure it gets better from there.
Yeah. I'd watch it too. And the theme song was pretty great.
Yeah. Yeah, the theme song was actually really good. And they actually had James Brown's music, which I'm surprised, because you really don't often hear like actual like artist music on like sitcoms that are on network TV, because it's it's so expensive to like get the licensing and stuff for it. So that was actually pretty cool.
I mean, the PJs was somewhat successful, but it it won 3 Emmys and an Annie, which is pretty big deal. To get that many, but I think it definitely should have it should have been a longer series. But I'm guessing since the later episodes, Super was voiced by Phil Morris.
Yeah,
I'm guessing that like Eddie Murphy just didn't have enough time to really dedicate to it.
Probably.
Which, that makes a lot of sense. I mean,
I wonder if he continued to like write for it, or was still like producing it after he stopped doing the voice. That'd be interesting. I don't know. There's not like too much information on it.
No, which is kind of cool.
It's a shame, because I would like to know why it was canceled, because again, it was funny, like, and I'm surprised that it didn't last.
Yeah. I mean, I could see at least 2 more seasons.
As of 2020, the series is no longer syndicated by other television networks, but is occasionally shown on the ad-supported video on-demand service Pluto TV, specifically on the service's Kevin Hart's Laughed Out Loud network.
Oh, I didn't know he had a network.
I didn't know either.
I mean, is it still a network, or is it? Because I know there's been like a few different comedy, comedy focused, like networks or streaming services, and they haven't really done that well. Like I remember a few years ago there was one that HBO did called CISO, which I think is a dumb name. So maybe that's why, because it doesn't really tell you anything about what it is.
Yeah.
But I mean now, and it just didn't really work for a while, and like I think Crackle was specifically done.
Yes, because Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee was on Crackle originally.
Yeah, but that ended up just being the lifeblood of that whole thing, and like now that like now that it's on Netflix, like I think
I think Crackle died.
I think it still may exist. I don't even know. I mean, I never watched anything on it except for Comedians in Cars. So
yeah, that's all I ever watched on it was Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. I'm reading here. I think the reason why the theme song was so good is because George Clinton actually did the theme song, so that makes sense.
Yeah,
like why it was so friggin' good.
Yeah, and Quincy Jones' son too, QD3.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean but that does make a lot of sense. Like, George Clinton is an amazing musician.
Yeah.
He'd be another guy that I'd like to meet.
Yeah.
If I could. Wait, is he still alive, actually?
I think so. Yeah, it says he is still alive.
Yeah, he's still alive. All right, good. He's 79, so I
remember him. He was on... Remember the show? It was on, I think, MTV or VH1. It was like Rock and Roll Jeopardy, and it was hosted by the guy, Jeff Probst, who hosts friggin' Survivor.
Who?
And they would... the guy who hosts Survivor, Jeff Probst or whatever.
Survivor.
Okay, well, that's what he's famous for. But he hosted Rock and Roll Jeopardy, and basically what it was Jeopardy, except they would bring all these rock stars on to play. And George Clinton was on an episode. It was George Clinton versus Moon Unit Zappa versus Dave Mustaine.
What?
Yeah, and they were playing for charity, obviously. And so, like, Dave Mustaine pretty much, like, mopped the floor with both of them, because I think George Clinton was, like, just blazed, and Moon Unit Zappa is, like, a ditzy, like Valley Girl dumbass. So like Dave Mustaine just was dominated.
Yeah, I'm sure. Because for all of his songs, he has to do like so much research because they're like political and historical for like that stuff.
Yeah.
Where like Zappa's stuff was just basically whatever he decided to do that day.
And it was Moon Unit too.
I don't know if Moon Unit like does music. She does something.
I don't think she does. I think she's an actress or something.
Oh yeah, she might be. She does something. I mean, all of his kids do something. But like, it's funny that you call her Valley Girl because the Frank Zappa song "Valley Girl" was her idea.
Yeah,
and it was the only hit that he had, and he didn't do it on purpose. It just ended up happening in that way. And like in the Zappa documentary, like. I mean, we'll talk about it when we talk about Frank Zappa in our upcoming episode. So stay tuned, humans.
Yeah.
But he, like they started going crazy for him, and he was like started to take off like commercially because of the song Valley Girl, and then like people were like, oh, so what are you gonna write like to follow up? How are you gonna follow Valley Girl? What are you gonna follow Valley Girl with? And he was just like, I'm gonna write something that you will absolutely despise.
Let's see.
I mean, that's how.
Yeah, so she's an actress.
We'll talk about Frank Zappa when we have the.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Moon Unit Zappa when we do the Frank Zappa episode.
Yeah, and Dweezil Zappa, and the other, and Ahmet Zappa, and Zappa. I don't know what the fourth kid's name is.
Maybe it's mentioned just like Jim or something.
Yeah, well, I mean
Jim Zapp.
Yeah. But the show is very funny, and the humor is very situational. We also have the crazy old lady, which is fun too.
Yeah.
And you have all these interesting things just going on in the show, and it's just about the whole community. It's kind of like, I mean, it's kind of like an adult Hey Arnold in a way.
A little bit, yeah. I could see that.
where it's more
Yeah.
where it's just about the lives of the people in this in the projects, and it just revolves around the super and his kid, and I think it's kind of neat.
I think it definitely relates. People that have lived in an apartment building or in an urban setting or in the projects would definitely relate to it the most, obviously, because that's what it's really based off of. But I mean, I think the humor is pretty translatable. The jokes were funny, so. But again, Eddie Murphy is like a comedic genius, so I'm not surprised that it's good because it's Eddie Murphy, so it can't be bad. Although, Eddie Murphy has done some bad stuff, but like I feel like that was not him like writing it; it was just him getting a paycheck.
Yeah,
this is him like writing it.
That's what I'd have to agree with too. For as far as his like cinematic career,
yes,
like, he's done some good ones and some bad ones, and like. Luckily, no bad ones have tanked his career like it tanked other people's. Like he's pretty bulletproof.
Yeah,
but it's also because he's just so good, and I bet you people love being around him. Like
oh yeah,
like on the Joe Rogan episode of the Chappelle Show, he was saying how like Chappelle. I mean, on the Chappelle episode of the Joe.
Yeah, the Joe Rogan episode of Chappelle's show.
Yeah,
that would have been interesting.
It would have been. On the Chappelle episode of the Joe Rogan show recently. Yeah. He talks about how like just being in his presence is just amazing.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like when you watch him, he like really radiates. Like I saw Coming to America 2. I'm not going to call it Coming to America or put a hyphen on it. It's the sequel, or as some people like to call it, the new one.
Yeah.
I wasn't the craziest about it. I thought that the writing could have been a lot better. I expected a lot better from Kenya Barris, but I get why he wanted to do it. Some of the stuff that they did was a little unnecessary, and they like never went. They're barely in America. Like they only go to America for like maybe 20 minutes of the whole movie.
Oh wow!
And like half of it is in flashbacks. So
yeah.
So, but like it was nice to see Eddie Murphy again.
Yeah.
Like it was nice to see Arsenio Hall again. It was nice to see the two of them just working together.
Yeah.
And just that original cast, it was nice to see everybody. And Wesley Snipes' character honestly stole the show pretty good. He was pretty funny in that.
I still have to check it out. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I'd say if you like Coming to America, then
I love that movie. Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies.
I love it too. And like it's worth checking out just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
There's a couple of bright spots. Some of the characters are pretty well. Some of the newer characters are pretty well written. Like his daughters are pretty well written, which is good. The son, he's like developed a little bit, but I think there could have been other things that they could have done instead. But he looked like he was having a good time. It seemed like he was having a good time. Dolomite is my name. Like I said, I could not speak higher about that. Dreamgirls, he was great in it.
Yeah.
But the stuff that I mean, not that he wrote all of these projects, but I think Eddie Murphy, a couple of bad ones won't really do anything to him. He's pretty, like I said before, he's bulletproof. There, like once in a while, you'll get a Pluto Nash or like a or a Tower Heist or a Dr. Dolittle or something like that, and like what are you gonna do? He makes a bad one, he makes a bad one, or like the Haunted Mansion, is pretty unwatchable.
Yeah.
But all of his goods, but anything that he does that is good is so good that it like you just forget about like any of the lackluster projects that he's done.
Yeah.
Because when he puts out something that's good, it's always great.
Yes. All of his like classic movies are like classic comedy movies, like Coming to America, Trading Places, Beverly Hills Cop. His classic comedies are like when you think of like classic '80s comedies, those are like the top picks. So his good movies do really, like, outshine by far his bad movies.
Yeah, and like just as a dramatic actor too, he has such incredible range.
Yes.
Like he's the man is lightning in a bottle.
Yes.
And this show was just this show is just another one of those things. I don't know why it got like kind of like falls by the wayside. But
I guess it was I don't know.
It was just it was a fun and clever show, and I really enjoyed this.
I would kind of blame the network for it, because the networks, when they put, how networks kill shows because they put them in the wrong time slot, and that's what happens. So that's probably what happened here, is that it was just a high budget and declining ratings led to its cancellation in 2001. There you go.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah, all the network.
Which I could, and I could see because Claymation is very expensive to make, so.
Yeah,
and being on a network like
it said here that it says on the Wikipedia page that each episode took 2 months to make.
Yes, and also it being Fox putting it on the WB instead of on their main network. That's that's where shows go to die pretty much. The WB,
and then pawning it off to UPN just because. In the 90s and early 2000s, UPN was just basically considered the black channel by a lot of people, which I think is really stupid.
Which it was weird because SmackDown was on UPN, and that's pretty much anybody. So, but yeah, they did. WB to some extent too was kind of they had a lot of black TV, quote unquote. Because I remember
sometimes
Saturday mornings they had Soul Train.
Yeah, but it was the WB had more variety in its shows.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that. I would say it had a little the WB I thought had something for everyone.
Yeah.
Which I liked. UPN I liked a lot of UPN shows too. I would watch the Wayans brothers on it consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Martin was good too.
That was Martin Lawrence's sitcom?
Yeah, that show was hilarious.
I don't remember that show. I don't think I watched it.
Very funny.
I like Martin Lawrence. I think he's pretty funny.
He's very funny. I want to say I can't remember if the Jamie Foxx show was on WB or on UPN.
Yeah.
It was on one of those two. That show was pretty good too for a while.
Yeah.
But
Jamie Foxx is pretty amazing with everything he does. So
he's also extremely talented. But they just kept kind of. It seems like they didn't really know what to. It seems like the network just didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. So actually, the WB, if you look on the WB's Wikipedia, it says that. Hold on. I just saw it. 1 second. Okay. Yeah. So the network's first programs were mostly sitcoms targeted at an ethnically black audience. So even the WB was kind of that. I think they kind of branched out a little bit and got more more variety as opposed to UPN that kind of stayed in that kind of thing. But so they were kind of targeted at that, and which I can see because again, it was after Saturday morning cartoons, Soul Train came on. So
yeah, but I never thought anything of it. I just thought, oh, okay. Cool, they have Soul Train on, and sometimes we would watch it too because my dad watched Soul Train growing up. My dad liked it. My dad, and every once in a while they'd show Earth, Wind, and Fire would come on, or somebody or some Motown person that my dad liked.
Oh yeah,
we would keep it on.
Yeah,
that's how I learned about a lot of these funk bands was just from watching Soul Train.
Yeah.
But
I never watched it when I was a kid. Again, this is probably a show that I would watch now, but when I was a kid, I would just want to watch cartoons. And then when the cartoons ended, I was like, all right, I'm bored of this. I don't want to watch real life people. I want to watch cartoons. So I would just change the channel.
That's how I was most of the time too. But every once in a while, if it came on and my dad noticed, or if there was something that he liked on there, then we'd keep it on and he would, and then he'd do his awkward dad dances, and then I'd have to go away.
Yeah. Oh, the Jamie Foxx show was also on the WB.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I couldn't
and the
remember,
Steve Harvey show.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I couldn't remember which channel that was on.
Yeah.
Steve Harvey show was also pretty funny.
I think I've seen it. I don't really remember it too well, but I think I remember it being funny.
Yeah.
I like Steve Harvey. He's pretty wholesome.
I like him too. I've heard
he's pretty funny hosting Family Feud.
Yeah, I think he's great on Family Feud.
He really does a great job.
I've heard that in real life that he can be a little bit nasty sometimes, but like that's just what I've heard from like a few people, but I don't know him directly, so I can't comment on that.
Yeah.
But to me, he seems like a pretty nice guy. He's probably not nasty, but he's probably intense.
Yeah.
I would say he strikes me as someone who's intense, and maybe like that could like if you're easily intimidated, then like I could see you just taking something the wrong way. But like I don't think he's a nasty guy. I think he's intense for sure.
Well, Rogan made a pretty good point when he was talking to Chappelle the other day. That like when you hear about these stories of these like celebrities that are like assholes to their staff, it's because you're only hearing the times they were assholes like compiled into one like thing. Like
right.
Like the whole thing with like Ellen being an asshole to her staff. Like that's only because you're hearing like every time the staff complained, they just put it in one like list of shit. It's like, oh, here's all the bad shit she did like throughout the years. So it's like, doesn't mean she was like an asshole constantly, but like there was just a lot of times she was, and that's all you hear about. You don't hear about the time she was like a good boss, you know? And it's like the same thing with like any celebrities. All you're ever going to hear about is like how many times they were an asshole to someone, because that's all like friggin' celebrity like news and tabloids care about is like celebrities being assholes.
Yeah, it's just the bad stuff. And like, because like every once in a while you hear the only good story that you'll hear is like so and so donated X dollars to said charity, and it's like,
right.
Okay, well, what big deal? Like,
yeah,
like I'm sure they did many other nice things that we'll never know about.
Right.
But that's I don't know. That's just how it is. But I think that, like I said, I think Steve Harvey's probably a really nice guy. He's like, probably intense because he's probably a workaholic. He probably works constantly.
Yeah.
You know, and good for him. You know, the more work you can do, it's like go right ahead, go for it.
Yeah. Anyway, let's bring it back.
Yeah.
The PJs, great show, funny. It's a shame that it didn't get put on for longer than it did, but you know, otherwise, you know, animation's great. It's Eddie Murphy, so the comedy's obviously funny. The characters are funny. Like it's an overall great show and good. If anybody listening, you should all check it out because it really does hold up now.
Absolutely.
Today,
I gotta agree with you 100% of the way too. It was, it's a fun show. It's Eddie Murphy. What more could you want?
Right.
The characters are funny. Everything is really great. I can't say anything other than exactly what you said. The PJ, excellent show. Watch it if you can. Hunt it down. Watch the episodes. Subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/whydoesthisexist and watch our watch along.
Yeah.
It's a hoot.
Yeah. And our watch along, really, I would say of all the watch alongs we've done, this is like the most like
reactionary.
Most reactionary because like it was like everything came flooding back when we saw it. So it was like, whoa, like it was like a crazy nostalgia trip.
Yeah,
I think for both of us.
Big belly laughs.
Yeah. So.
But that's our show in a nutshell. Thank you guys for coming along with us and just taking this ride back down memory lane, talking about the PJs and Eddie Murphy. This is gloriousness. You can, again, like we said, help us out. Give us a couple of bucks on Patreon, patreon.com/whydoesthisexist. Email us at whydoesthisexistshow@gmail.com. Like, comment, subscribe on our YouTube channel. Check out all of our episodes and more at whydoesthisexistpod.com. Get us on Twitter and get us on Facebook. Facebook.com/whydoesthisexistpod. Twitter at WDTE pod. And don't forget to check us out on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Pandora, TuneIn, Alexa, iHeartRadio, Player FM, and Listen Notes. I've been Chris.
And I've been Rob.
And remember, everybody, question everything.
See ya.